Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy. I will be doing a book review today of Nevermoor, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. As you can see from the title, this book is about Morgan Crow. She is a cursed child in her homeland, and being a cursed child means that you get blamed for everything. If someone slips and falls and you had happened to talk with them the day before, you're blamed for them tripping and falling. It is well known that cursed children die on, I believe it's their 11th birthday, on evening tide, when pretty much the new year that comes in. And evening tide comes early, and so Morgan thinks that she is going to die. Also in Morgan's homeland, there is what's called bidding day, and that is where teachers, educators, various people can bid on children's education, so to take over their education, and they become patrons of that child. Morgan finds herself with bids on that day. One of the bids comes from a man named Jupiter North. And Jupiter saves Morgan from dying on evening tide. And he takes her away to this magical world of the Free States in the city called Nevermoor. Now, inside of Nevermoor is the Wonder Society, which Jupiter is a part of. The Wonder Society is made up of fantastic people who have very spectacular talents. In order to get into the Wonder Society, you have to face some trials. I believe there's 4 trials throughout. 3 of them are mixed up every year, and the last one is called the show trial, where people can present their knack or their talent. In order for a patron to take on a student in the Wonder Society, they have to know that the child has a knack. Morgan doesn't know what her knack is, and Jupiter doesn't really tell her, so she's left wondering, well, how am I going to get into the Wonder Society? And that's the premise of the book. So how did I like this book? Well, it was just okay. I mean, I love this book. Jessica Townsend did a really great job tackling difficult subjects in a way that isn't condescending to kids at all. Sometimes I feel like middle grade books have a tendency to hold back on talking about things like death and, knowing that you're going to die at some point in time. Morgan Crow lives with the fact that she's going to die at the age of 11 or age of 12. And there's a really potent scene where they're celebrating Morgan's last birthday, and Morgan's stepmom, starts to stand up and she's like, I feel it's appropriate for me to say something. And, Morgan's thinking, at last, someone's going to acknowledge that this is happening, and someone's going to say something kind about me, or someone's going to just at the very least acknowledge that I'm going to be missed. And then her stepmom announces that she's pregnant with twins. It was such a well-crafted scene, and one that, as an adult, I just went, what? Are you kidding? That's insane. How would someone do that, especially to a child who's about to pass away? Jessica Townsend just did an amazing job with that kind of ambience and the cloud that hangs over Morgan and her resentment towards all of this and how that is displayed. And then what happens when Jupiter swoops in and takes Morgan to Nevermoor. The plot of this novel is solid. It's straightforward, but at the same time, there's other plots weaving in and out. I think the writing style is accessible to both kids and adults. That I don't think that it's, I think if an adult reads this book, that they're not just going to say, this was a little bit too, simplified down or anything along those lines. Rather, I think probably I see a lot of adults liking this book. So the plot of someone going through trials or challenges in order to get into a certain group or school or what have you isn't a new concept. However, I did find the trials that Jessica Townsend wrote were really solid. I liked them a lot. There was what was called the book challenge, where you're testing whether or not you're fast thinking. And then there was a couple other trials that they had. I don't want to give too much away, but they were just really solid. If I had one critique, it was actually about the second challenge. And I'm not going to give too much away, but it just felt the end of that challenge, of how Morgan actually defeats that challenge, was a little bit of a cop-out. Jessica Townsend did such an amazing job with setting up this tension for Morgan, and you really felt it. You didn't know what was going to happen at the end of that second trial. And then how it concluded just fell a little bit flat for me. But that was it. Like, throughout the whole book, there's just not a lot that I thought, didn't fit or that could have been done better. Everything was pretty well-rounded. Of course, one of my favorite things about reading is reading various different types of characters. So I'm going to introduce some of my favorite characters that were in this book. The first character I want to talk about is Hawthorne. Hawthorne has to be my favorite character. If there was a character who could epitomize who Christina is on the inside, I think it would probably be Hawthorne, with the exception of he's braver than I am. So Hawthorne is the first friend that Morgan makes, and he is a dragon rider, and he's brave, and he's all these sorts of things, and he's an adventurer. He's a fantastic character, and he's funny as all get out. It's nice to see someone who has high energy, who isn't kind of incompetent in a book, especially when they're kind of a side role to the main character. He's very smart and very competent at what he does. So it's not just like he's this idiot who just runs headlong into things. Like, he kind of thinks about what he's doing, but he just goes for it, which is fantastic. The next character I want to talk about is Fen. Now, Fen is, full name is Fenestra, and she is a giant cat. She works in the hotel that Jupiter owns, and Morgan then lives in when she gets into Nevermoor. She's grumpy, but she's loving, and she embodies a cat very, very much. And constantly threatens people with, like, putting itching powder in their sheets and all that kind of stuff. I love her character so, so much. Then there is Morgan's patron, Jupiter North. In the book, he has a beard, but I'm very bad at drawing beards, so I'm not going to try. But Jupiter is an adventurer. He's kind of an turtle child himself, and he's taking care of a kid. Morgan is the first child that he takes under his wing. So it's very telling that for so long, he kind of avoided this aspect of the Wonder Society, is he didn't put a child in under his wing to get into the Wonder Society until Morgan. So it's kind of like he's growing up too in this book. And then last but not least is the main character herself, Morgan Crow. Morgan was written fantastically well. She starts out the series with being a very dreary young lady, and no wonder. She was constantly told that she was a curse, that she was blamed for things that she didn't directly cause. She knew when she was going to die, and no one seemed to really care. She was very distant with her parents, and it didn't seem like any of her family really liked her or wanted her around. So, she's miserable in the first part of the book, and you can see why. What I loved most is seeing Morgan really come into her own person as an actual child, and that she's able to run around and have fun and have adventures. And the person that she is at the beginning of the book is not the same girl that she is at the end. So it was a really great character arc. If you love character-driven stories, this is definitely the book to get. And that's not saying the plot isn't strong. The plot is definitely strong. Very, very much is. So, to summarize, Nevermoor, The Trial of Morgan Crow is a great first book. It really sets up the world building, has a very distinct narrative voice, strong plot, and a wonderful array of characters who have their own quirks and personalities, and none of them feel like they were just cardboard cutouts of other characters. It was very well crafted. Frederick and I are giving this a thumbs up. So I heavily recommend this to people who like fantasy, and especially if you really want a fun novel. And that's my review of Nevermoor. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up. If you like seeing my face talk about books, hit that subscribe button. And as always and forever, may you get lost in a book.